Good evening. I call to order the February Knox County Beer Board meeting. Clerk could please call the roll.
Commissioner Lundy,
Here.
Commissioner Durant,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Ward,
Here.
Commissioner Schoolmaker,
Here.
Commissioner Hill, Commissioner Bustler,
Here.
Commissioner Beeler,
Here.
Commissioner Daly,
Here.
Commissioner Jay,
Here.
Commissioner Biggs.
Present.
11 members present.
Thank you. I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce Vice Chair Richie Beeler, as well as the Knox County Law Director, Mr. Mike Moyers. Mr. Moyers, at this time, could you please direct us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Please stand and face the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Before we start, and I ask for an approval of the minutes, 5B, the marathon at the AJ Highway, has called in at 2 o'clock to let us know that they have not got an opportunity to be here due to COVID-related illnesses. So I would look to the district commissioner to see if they would like to defer or what action they'd like to take.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we postpone this until the March Beer Board meeting.
Do I have a second? Would anyone like to discuss this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's been deferred. All right, now I would like to entertain approval of the minutes. Second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Minutes are approved. I'd like to turn it over now to Mike Morris from the Knox County Law Director's Office to swear in those who are going to testify.
All right. Anybody who's going to testify before the beer board tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Everybody who solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give today be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be God. Thank you very much. By the way, one thing that we need to read into the record for everybody who's going to be here, Knox County Charter, Ordinance 096-11-105 states that any person lying to or intentionally misleading the Knox County Commission, its committees, subcommittees, or any Knox County board or commission authorized by county ordinance or state statute while testifying as a witness under oath shall be guilty of the offense of civil perjury, and each such offense shall be punishable by a fine of $500.
Thank you, Director Morris. Now I'd like to turn over to the clerk's office for the revocations.
We have 5A, that's Shell Food Mart, 238 Andrew Johnson Highway, it's District 8.
All right. Is the owner, Mr. Patel, here? All right. And do we have, okay, go ahead.
Your Honor, T. Scott Jones of the Knoxville Bar, Banks and Jones, 2125 Middlebrook Pike. Here with Mr. Praven Patel. I have some material that, if I could be permitted, I'd like to hand out to the members of commission.
Yes.
Meantime, do we have an officer here?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, if you would begin by detailing the offenses that you're bringing before the board.
Yes, sir. On January 24th, 2022, at approximately 16:38 hours, an underage person working with the Knox County Sheriff's Office entered the business at 238 Andrew Johnson Highway. And after their ID was checked, they were able to purchase an alcoholic beverage from the business.
Is that, okay, that's the first offense?
That's their third offense.
That's the third offense. Okay. Have we already considered the first two? Okay, all right. Hi, Mr. Jones. Does your client admit or deny these allegations?
He admits with an explanation. Obviously, he was not the one that was there relative to it. We've outlined that. As the board knows, we were in front of the board on 2 prior occasions. And as I've outlined in my submissions to the board on those previous occasions, we purchased software, we purchased other equipment that would basically prevent this from happening. Unfortunately, no different than somebody literally going in there and taking beer and running out. I mean, he can't do it as the owner because what happened was the individual that was the clerk, and we've attached his discharge notice. He immediately got discharged that day. He was cited for the underage selling of beer. He just circumvented the entire system, i.e. he looked at the ID. He did not process it through the electronic reader. And rather than attempting to ring the beer in the manner in which it should have been rang, which would have shown up beer, would not have permitted the sale without the electronic reader. And my client will testify to that. He effectively just overrang it, which for all intents and purposes, it creates a situation where the store owner, albeit he is responsible for what goes into and comes out of his store. I don't know if it was malicious on the part of this employee, because he was certainly aware that there had been 2 prior occasions in which this particular business has been checked. But I sit here with Mr. Patel, and he'll be glad to address the board with hat in hand, but literally he's handcuffed to the extent that his employee just ignored anything. And the employee might as well just have thrown the underage individual the beer and said, hit the door, have at it. But I don't know what more a business owner is supposed to do under that set of circumstances. Certainly has to abide by and follow the rules, but that's why we offer the explanation. And then we attach the separation notice where this employee was, boom, January 24th, he's hasta la vista, he's gone. So that's the circumstances that we'd find in. If the court wants to hear from Mr. Patel, we can certainly, I'll be more than happy to examine him as well.
What's the pleasure of the members of the board?
Commissioner Ward?
I have a question. So he rang it up as something different, is what you're saying, than alcohol?
What he did was he didn't scan it.
Okay.
If you scan it with a barcode, it's got a UPC code. If you scan it and you go through the scan, it shows up as beer. Clearly is what the UPC would do. But then if you just type it in as miscellaneous and manually put it in like you would an old time cash register,
Okay.
whatever it was, 1098, I don't know how much it was. You do that, you can circumvent the system. I mean, reality of it is until, there's an infallible mousetrap built that a human being can't circumvent the system, then that's what happens. But Mr. Patel is the owner of the store. He's usually there. This employee was there, and the employee just effectively manually circumvented all of the software and everything else that he had put in.
If it's okay with the board, I'd like to, since this is, I feel like going to have a lot of questions, I'd like to go ahead and open the floor up now for us to do that instead of a motion first and do that last. If that's okay with the board. Does anybody else want to speak to this?
Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Jones or Mr. Patel, what was the same employee responsible for all 3 violations?
You have to answer.
Yeah. No, he was responsible for the first time. Then we paid for his ticket. Also, we paid for him to get alcohol education classes done. So he got the classes done in December.
Okay.
So it's not like he doesn't know the procedures and everything.
Sure.
He knows it because he got the training.
Thank you.
The second ticket was another employee relative to that. And we were here with the second ticket. We felt good that we had put software and everything in place, literally where it has to electronically scan the driver's license. But no different than an employee, if the beer is $20, he takes the $20, puts the $20 in his pocket and gives them the beer. Looks like he looks at the driver's license. If he doesn't scan it, absolutely, it being robotic in nature, there's no way that you can prevent that circumvention of the system.
Mr. Patel, if you could please come to the podium and give us your name and address, please, for the record.
Okay. First, Mitesh Patel. Address is home or the business?
Either one.
The house address is 5112 Prairie Clover Lane, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Could you spell your name for us, please?
Mitesh, Mitesh, last name Patel.
Thank you, sir. Do any other commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Hill?
Reflecting back to the sheriff's department, would you tell us again what was actually written in the report? Did the intern observe this particular transaction?
What do you mean, did they observe the transaction?
Well, was he able to see that the system was overridden?
We wouldn't, that's not something we would pay attention to. That's a civil thing on their end. So we wouldn't look at that.
Is there anything on the receipt that indicates when that's occurred? I guess, Mr. Patel?
We have the individual receipt that is at the date and the time. And what they did is the individual rang it in as a novelty as opposed to beer, which is basically there. So as they get what they call action merchandise, things for seasonal and things of that nature that may not be coded, things that they're selling like that, he overrang it and rang it as a novelty.
Commissioner Schoonmaker.
Thank you, Chairman Biggs. Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Department, quick question. By ringing it up as a miscellaneous item, is there any way that the business is circumventing the tax on alcohol?
That would be a revenue question, but I could contact revenue and have an answer for you. Obviously,
Because
they're not paying the tax on it because it's not rang up as such, but I can't answer directly for them.
Okay, because that would be way for one business to
Yes, I understand. Yeah.
circumvent. Okay,
Commissioner
Okay.
Smith.
thank you.
If I could address that, the beer company actually, when he does his wholesale transactions, they report the sales and that basically keeps revenue and that keeps what you're concerned about from happening with regards to that, because he's going to pay on what his wholesale product is anyway.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sheriff's Department? Was the ID checked?
Yes, sir. It was provided to the clerk.
Go back to Commissioner Schoonmaker. Was that the answer to your question?
Yeah, I was just looking if there's something going on where bringing up sales, like cigarette sales, they want to know exactly how much you're selling, but that does not go as a recorded beer sale, even though they've already paid the tax as they purchased it.
Commissioner Ward.
I kind of understand what he's saying as the beer wasn't necessarily sold more so than stolen almost because it wasn't ever rung up and charged as a beer. He didn't, that's the part I'm trying to, because he's not, and according to his register, he didn't sell alcohol. He sold, but he did at the same time. He sold him the beer, but he didn't sell him the beer. That's why I understand your argument that you're trying to make. Am I accurate on the argument that you're making that?
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, because basically it gets rang up. I mean, it cheats the boss as well. I mean,
Yeah.
effectively is what it does. I mean, for whatever he does, it got rang up as a $2.19 novelty. So, that's what it went through. Here is the novelty. So I don't know if it was, basically a 40 or what it was, but that's how it got rang up by this employee. I don't know. We can't speak as to the employee's mindset. If this was one where it was an obvious situation, he knows it's going to be a sting and he knows what it's going to do to his employer. And ultimately, as basically Harry Truman was once saying, the buck stops with him and he understands his responsibility, but he also understands that, he's literally spent thousands of dollars to prevent this from happening. He is as chagrined as anybody else. And that's why I attach both the citation relative to it as well as his Tennessee Department of Workforce and Development and Labor discharge. We discharged him immediately.
You still have. The floor.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sense of this in my head. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. Commissioner Jay.
Thank you. Since the same employee was the person who had the first offense, can you, this is probably not relevant to the decision today in a direct sense, but what happened, and then maybe this is a question for the sheriff's department, what happens to that employee? How are they cited, and are they cited in a larger way personally on the second time?
So I contacted Assistant DA Samuel Jubron about the issue because his initial charge was dismissed with cost. This charge, he was given the option for diversion. So he applied for diversion. It hasn't came through yet. He's good for 6 months after that time frame. It gets wiped off his record.
So he was personally cited a second time
Correct.
as well. Yes.
I attached that citation to the information. If you'll look back through the packet of materials, I attached it to.
Thank you. Commissioner Bustler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me ask you a question here. Was that person that cited for the third time, he was cited for the first time also, correct?
Yes.
And you went through training with him, right?
Yes, and he also went to alcohol education training at the Knoxville, one of the Knoxville Sheriff or the City Police Department. They offer it every Thursday morning. I think it's 8 o'clock they offer it. Well, there's a certificate from there.
Okay, I understand that. My question is going to this. You trained him again. You told him exactly what not to do. And then you hired him back anyway. And this is the second time he's done it. And the third offense is very, very strenuous. Could be very a harder problem for you.
Yeah.
But you still kept that employee on. Did you know that employee?
I don't know him personally. It's the first time he did it. And so I kind of felt sorry for him. Nothing against him, but since he went to the training, offered to go to training and all that, I thought he might, probably do the right thing next time.
I think we look at the fact that the employee is basically during a pandemic. And I mean, I know we use pandemic as the excuse, but when we look at when that initial first offense was, I mean, you can't get people to hit a lick at a snake. And so that being said, I mean, he's kind of stuck.
The problem I have is if he was, like you said, he just basically gave the beer away to a minor, not even sold it, but that type of person. But the first time with you training and you talking to him and he did it the third, made it the third offense for you. I don't know what to say. If an employee the first time made me spend out money, he wouldn't be working there the second time. And that's just my feeling, even if it was a pandemic. I'm sorry, but it was to a minor, and that's the problem.
Commissioner Hill.
Mr. Law Director, is this something we even have any flexibility over?
Yes, you have actually complete flexibility. The ordinance that we have has a discretionary penalty scheme, but it is discretionary. If you'll notice, the language and states that the commission may at its discretion exercise the following. You have any remedy that you'd like, from suspension, revocation, offering a civil fine, the whole panoply of things that you have the right to do. Way back when I was here before, we instituted this series of graduated penalties because there was a feeling at the time that we wanted some stability in how things got addressed. But we were careful to make sure that it was discretionary and under extraordinary circumstances where you don't believe that these suggested penalties fit, you can exercise any penalty that you feel is appropriate. The only limitation being that if you wish to level a civil fine, $2,500 is the max that you can go on that. Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The problem I have is the third offense within a 5-6 months period. And we all know these were not just the 3 times that alcohol was probably sold to a minor. I don't believe that our sheriff's deputies are the only ones that probably attempted to purchase beer. Sir, I feel for you. My family ran a convenience store for 30 years. It is hard to get people, but ultimately the buck does stop with you, and it is up to you to vet the people you hire to make sure they're not going to engage in this kind of activity.
You got
I had one thing to say, and then I'll yield to my colleague. This bothers me, notwithstanding the excellent presentation of the circumstances. And I know Mr. Patel's gone to great efforts here after the fact, but I have to agree with Commissioner Smith. This is 3 offenses in 4 months. And, was listening to the law director and looking down the list here, we've got some first offenders, and they're going to get fined. And I can't support a fine in this case. I cannot support anything short of a suspension. The only question is the length of the suspension. And so I will yield to Commissioner Schumaker.
Thank you very much. And I agree with your comments and Commissioner Smith's comments that this is an egregious situation we have here where a business who, keep in mind, they don't have a right to sell beer in Knox County. It's a privilege to sell beer. And with that being said, and the amount of offenses, I'm prepared to make a motion that we suspend the beer license for the Shell Food Mart at 238 Andrew Johnson Highway for a period of 180 days.
Commissioner Jay?
Is it okay to comment before, I mean, there's a motion on the floor, so I don't know if it's okay to.
Second.
Okay.
There's a proper first and second. Yeah, we'll go back.
Thank you. I guess I would ask Chairman Beeler, this is your district and you sort of started the ball rolling. You know, if we just go right to suspension under the most egregious circumstances, what's the incentive for somebody to try to do right? I understand that we've had a couple of offenses in this case, but given the circumstances and the evidence shown, you have an owner that has come before us a couple of times and we've said, you've got to get better, you got to get the software, you got to do everything. And it seems to me, based upon the testimony, that he's done the training, he's done the software, he's tried to he's trying to make a better situation. So if we don't take that into consideration and we just clamp down and shut down this business, what's the incentive for anybody to want to do better if it's just going to end up in the same spot? I think we ought to give some consideration, and I would just put that on the floor for any particular substitute motion.
Is there any further discussion?
Sheriff's Department. Did, what exactly was purchased?
It was a can of beer.
A can of beer. So the $2, well, that's still pretty cheap, isn't it? I was trying to get some sense if maybe this employee was putting money in his pocket or
Probably not $2.
he paid the $2.
Correct.
That's what the intern paid, was the $2 and 19 cents or
Correct.
whatever is that. Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Ward?
We can't do anything against the employee, correct? Law director?
Not the beer board.
No,
No,
the
the beer
state
board
can.
acts on the basis of the license.
Okay, just making sure.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think 180 days is pretty harsh. I was wondering if anybody would entertain 90 days.
Is that in form of a substitute motion?
Yeah, I'll make a substitute motion, 90 days, to see if we get a second.
I'll second that. Proper first and second. Is there any further discussion?
Again, I would just go back to say, this isn't that it's 3 times over a 20-year period. This is 3 times within less than a 6-month period. So they kept on an employee who had hurt them the first time, and it's come back to hurt them again. And it is the sole responsibility of the business owner to run his business properly. And again, it's not a right, it's a privilege.
Sheriff's Department, one more time. Did this intern know this employee?
No.
Was there any type of a personal,
No, we've never used them in that store before.
so you know for a fact that
Correct,
they're not old friends from
correct.
back in the day? Thank you.
Commissioner Smith?
Sorry, Sheriff's Department. This is the 3rd time in a short period. How many times have you been there to do a check in that time period?
I would have to go back and look at our records. I send them in every month to Miss Daly. It shows where we visited. I could go back and look, but I don't know that we visited there maybe one other time outside of the 3 violations.
Okay, thank you.
Floor is open for discussion. Anyone? We have a proper substitute motion before us. If the clerk could read the substitute motion so everyone knows what we're getting ready to vote on.
For 90 days instead of the 180. Suspension. Suspension 90 days instead of the 180 days.
And that's a first by Commissioner Smith and a second by Commissioner Jay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
We're going to do a roll call vote now.
Commissioner Lundy. Aye. Commissioner Durant. Aye. Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Schoolmaker.
No.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Bustler. Commissioner Beeler. Commissioner Daly. Commissioner Jay.
Aye.
Commissioner Biggs.
Vote of 6 ayes and 5 noes. Ayes win. Would anyone like to change their vote at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to change my vote to aye.
Okay, Commissioner, anyone else? Eight, three. The vote is 8-3 for 90-day suspension. Mr. Patel, the clerk's going to send you some information.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. 5B has been deferred to next month. And now the clerk, we're going to move on to 5C.
This is Weigel's 7505 Clinton Highway, and it's District 6. Owners of the Weigels.
Sir, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Brad Anderson, 3100 Weigels Lane, Powell, Tennessee.
And that's the business address?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we have somebody from the Sheriff's Department here to tell us about this.
On January 24th, 2022, at approximately 16:38 hours, underage person working with the Knox County Sheriff's Office entered the Weigel store number 89 at 7505 Clinton Highway. The defendant sold beer to an underage person after checking the person's ID.
Mr. Weigel, I'm sorry, Mr. Anderson,
Brad, yes,
do you admit or deny this allegation?
we admit.
You have any testimony or extenuating circumstances you want to tell the board?
Just a testimony of, excuse me, as a pillar of the community, we know that we have an obligation, it's a privilege to be able to serve, and we did not do that. We did not hold our end. So we have put, the employee was terminated on the spot, so she no longer works for us. And then we have a extensive training program that is in place. In that regards, the POS system, new training for all employees to be able to take the ABC class, alcohol training, and then an internal alcohol compliance check that we do now in store, to where we go in from our department. We will spot check how they're doing, we'll card, and then let them know if they pass or fail at that time.
For the board.
Thank you, Law Director. At this time, I'd look to the chairman in the 6th district to make a motion.
I believe, Mr. Law Director, if I'm correct, the penalty for first offense recommended is $1,000 fine or a 30-day suspension.
Under the ordinance, it's a $500 fine or 30-day suspension.
All right.
Have we? No, my book is not updated then.
Yeah.
Okay, apparently it's $1,000.
All All right.
That's what
all
happens
right.
when you're away for a few years.
Well, listen, I go to that store a lot and I understand stuff happens, but I'd like to make a motion that we impose either the suspension or the fine at the choice of the representative here.
Fine. We will
The
take the fine.
fine.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right, all right. I make a motion then that we impose the $1,000 fine on this Weigels for the first offense.
Do I have a second? First by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Bustler. I'd like to open the floor up for discussion. Any questions? Commissioner Bustler?
You are a pillar in our community,
Yes, sir.
and we have a lot of stores there, and this really is a hard thing to do because I know how hard you all work at that. So anyway, I just appreciate you being out in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bustler. Do I have anyone else? There's a proper motion on the floor with a proper second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Anderson, we'll send you a letter.
Okay. Thank you.
Next, we're going to move on to 5D.
And it's Midway IGA 7345 Tazewell Pike, and that's District 8.
All right, sir, would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Dale Longmire, 7345 Tazewell Pike, Corrington, 37721.
Good evening. Ms. Sheriff, can you tell us about the allegation here?
Yes, sir. On January 24th, 2022, at approximately 16:48 hours, underage person working with the sheriff's office entered the Midway IGA located at 7345 Tazewell Pike and was able to purchase a single alcoholic beverage after their ID was checked.
Mr. Longmire, how do you plead to this allegation?
I agree to it.
Do you have any extenuating circumstances or details you'd like to offer the board?
No. I do have her certificate where she did take the top shelf training program, but I just have no reason why she did this. She told me she checked the ID, but just didn't register in her head, I guess. I don't know.
Thank you. Thank you. At this time, I would look to the 8th District County Commissioner to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Longmire. I kind of like Mr. Bustler. This is hard to do because and normally in these situations, we don't give words of commendation, but I would just say to Mr. Longmire and to Midway IGA, 25 years with your beer permit, and it's the first time you've been before this body, I believe. So I will offer a motion then to give you the choice of a 30-day suspension or $1,000 fine, whichever you.
$1,000 fine.
Do I have a second? We have a proper first and second before us. I'd like to open the floor up for discussion. No one? Given that we have a proper first and second before us, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Longmire, the clerk will send you a letter.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move on to number 6, which is the application portion.
6A is Shoto Beer Market and Bistro, 1615 Shoto Road, that's Knoxville, 37922, owned and off premises, District 5.
All right, sir, would you state your name for the commission?
My name is Mark Amrine, owner member, 2608 Summit Vista Way, Knoxville, 37922.
All right, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Are you a resident of the state of Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
Is the information on your application current and accurate?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that you shall make no beer sales to minors?
Oh, indeed, sir.
Okay. Have you or any of your employees at this location been convicted of any violation of the laws against possession, sale, manufacture, or transportation of intoxicating liquors or any crimes involving moral turpitude within the past 10 years?
No, sir.
All right. Has beer ever been sold at this location before?
No, sir, we're building from the ground up.
Okay. Is no outstanding license then?
I'm sorry.
There's no outstanding beer license on this property?
No, sir.
Okay. This is an application for off-premise sales only?
That's on and off. Yes, sir.
On and off premise, okay. Do you own these premises?
We purchased the land, had it rezoned, and then we did a sale leaseback to a developer who will be our landlord.
Okay. Does anyone else have an interest in the business? Of more than 5%?
Partners with Bradley Pruitt.
Okay. Who's going to operate the business?
Our general manager is Cody Price.
Okay. And have you determined that he's familiar with the Knox County and Tennessee beer laws? And do you all agree to conduct your business in conformity with them?
Absolutely.
Okay. And have you all completed the server training program?
A number of times. We own and operate Beard and Beer Market as well.
Okay. All right. Health Department? Ready? I guess did people send them? Sheriff's Department?
No concern.
Beer Board Inspector? Codes? Okay. And Fire Marshal? Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Director. I'd like to turn this over to the Fifth District County Commission now at this time.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr. Chairman. Just real quickly, based on the current construction environment, when do you actually plan to get going and when do you think that the building will be completed?
We hope to break ground next month and are looking for somewhere in the fall, hopefully before the end of October.
Okay, great. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the beer permit for 1615 Chodo Road, pending the series of certificate of occupancy, which would only be applied once the building is complete. So
Second.
We have a proper first and a proper second before us. I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. Okay. We have a motion before us to approve. We have a proper first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The clerk will be waiting on you to send them after you start the proper
Very good.
information. Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Have a
Best
good
of
evening.
luck. Next, we're going to move on to 6B.
It's Texas Roadhouse, 7559 Connor Road, it's Powell, Tennessee, 37849, off premises, District 7.
All right, sir. Would you tell us your name and address for the record, please?
Aaron Wiley at 7559 Connor Road, Powell,
Okay.
Tennessee.
And that's the business address?
Correct.
Okay. Are you a resident of the state of Tennessee?
I am.
All right. Is the information on your application current and accurate?
Yes,
Do you agree and understand that you will make no beer sales to minors?
absolutely.
All right. Have you or any of your employees at this location been convicted of any violation of laws against possession, sale, manufacture, or transportation of intoxicating liquor or a crime involving moral turpitude within the past 10 years?
No, sir.
Has beer ever been sold at this location before?
No, sir. We are building it from the ground up.
Okay. And this is an application for on premise or on and off or
Just on.
just on? All right. Do you own the premises?
I do not. It is leased.
LLC?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does anyone else have an interest in the business?
It should just be myself and my regional manager.
Okay. Who's going to operate the business?
I will.
All right. Are you familiar with the beer laws of Knox County and the state of Tennessee, and you agree to conduct your business in conformity with them?
Absolutely.
All right. Have you completed the server training program?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Health Department? Sheriff's
Health-
Department?
Sorry.
That's okay.
No concerns, Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Beer Board Inspector? Codes? Fire Marshal? Any other questions? Over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director. Sir, could you please spell your name for the record?
AARON. Last name is WILEY.
W-I-L-E-Y?
Correct.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the 7th District Commissioner, Commissioner Bustler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that we accept this application pending the certificate of occupancy, both the fire marshal and the health and the what is codes. Forgot about the codes. But anyway, and I'll make that motion.
We have a proper first and a proper second before us. I'd like to open up the floor for discussion.
Oh, I want to say something. When are you going to open that?
March 28th is our tentative opening date.
March. I've had a bunch of people banging on me to make sure this got through tonight. But anyway, we're
I'm
waiting
excited.
for you out there.
I'm excited to be open and serve the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We have a proper first and a proper second before us. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Sir, whenever you get your building completed, clerk will send you some.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to be moving on to 6C.
Hi, sir. Come to the podium. Would you tell us your name and address for the record, please?
Syed Najam Udin. It's 7201 Chapman Highway.
Okay. Are you a resident of state Tennessee, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is the information on your application current and accurate?
Yes, sir.
You understand and agree you will make no sales to minors?
Absolutely.
All right. Have you or any of your employees at this location been convicted of any violation of the laws against possession, sale, manufacture, or transportation of intoxicating liquor or any crime involving moral turpitude within the past 10 years?
No, sir.
To work on my breathing for that question. Has beer ever been sold at this location before?
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. You're not aware if there's any outstanding license?
No,
Okay. This is an application for on or on and off premise sales?
on and off.
Okay. Do you own these premises?
I do not.
Okay.
I lease it.
All right. Do you have any other relationship with the owner of the property other than just having a lease?
No,
Okay. Does anyone else have an interest in the business?
no, just me and
Okay.
my wife.
Who's going to operate the business?
I operate right now.
All right. Are you familiar with Knox County and Tennessee beer laws and regulations? Do you agree to conduct your business in conformity with them?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have you completed the server training program?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Health Department? Sheriff's Department? Beer Board Inspector? Sorry? Codes? Okay. And Fire Marshal?
Thank you, Director. Sir, could you do me a favor and spell your name?
First name is Syed. Last name is Najamuddin.
At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Make a motion to approve this application.
We have a proper first and proper second. Before we take the vote, I would also like to remind you that we're lacking a certificate of registration as well.
Okay, I'll get it for you.
Commissioner Jay's placed a first and Commissioner Durr's placed a second. I'd like to open the floor up for discussion. Anyone? We have a proper first and second before us. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
The clerk's going to be sending you some other information.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like to turn it back over to the clerk. We're moving on to number 7.
And this is just a spread of record letter that the Casey's and Good Stop, they changed their store numbers in error when they first filled out their application. So they changed the store numbers. And that was the only thing that was changing, just the store numbers. And it should be put in the spread of records.
Can we read those store numbers into the record, please?
Okay, the first one, the old number was Casey's number 4096, and it's at 2801 East Governor John Sevier Highway. The new number is going to be 4204. The next Casey's, the old number was 4122, and that's at 6804 Clinton Highway. The new number is going to be 4209. The next one is Good Stop. The old number is 4127. The new number is 4214, and that's at 8541 Middlebrook Pike.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to other business. Does anyone have any other business? At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.